So on the subject of manta rays,
Yes, indeed. Yes.
I wanted to say a couple things. One, first of all, this was my first time in Hawaii ever. And we'll say more about that some other time. But anyway,
Next time, I think we'll be back on Saturday and we'll talk a little bit more.
we had a great time. And it was a brief trip, but it was just jam-packed with cool stuff. Hey, that's us.
That is us.
On the screen there, right at the launching point of the kayaks, which we used to access the manta rays. We're not going to say too much about exactly where this is, but let us say we were on the Kona side of the big island of Hawaii at the point that we went looking for manta rays, and we had excellent guidance from some local folks who knew all about it. They steered us away from what we would have ended up being dragged into and would have resented every bit of.
We're not. I had already.
You'd already figured out we weren't doing that.
No.
So there are tour operators who feed manta rays and take you out in a big boat and put the lights on under, and you get to swim with them. And don't do that. It's not good for the manta rays. It's not a healthy experience, but it is possible. In fact, in our discussion in whatever episode that was, 299, we specifically discussed this amazing phenomenon,
which I will be reading about,
which you'll be reading about these cleaning stations where the manta rays go to get cleaned. And we just so happened to be near one, and that meant they're not perfectly reliable, but they're apparently nocturnal, and during the day they spend time around these cleaning stations where these little fish purge them of parasites. And
they clean them from wounds. Well, I'll share this a little bit.
So do you want to?
So I just want to say that this short piece that I'm going to read while we show some of the footage that you got of the manta rays is from the beginning of the beauty chapter in my new book. It's a book with many chapters, 30 or 31 I ended up with, in a section on manifestation, a larger section that explores the body and the senses and risk and pain and fear and beauty, and how all of these things are realities in our experience, and we use them to better understand the world. The book being a plea to everyone to find your inner scientist, and for me, one of the pillars of science is wonder. And so this is from the beginning of the chapter on beauty as it currently stands in a book that is still in the creation stages. So, manta rays. With fins like wings, they soar through water as if they are flying. They look delicate and graceful, but are in fact powerful and robust. Grace is often found with strength. Weakness falters, while grace is steady. Manta rays are prehistoric animals, close relatives of sharks, but so very smart. The brains of manta rays are huge, and yet they are no predators. They eat passively, opening their massive jaws and using their cephalic fins to steer plankton into their mouths, smoothly, with ease. They are in no rush. Not now. Unlike many of their relatives, mantas have no barbs, no ability to sting. Manta rays often tussle with sharks, though, and have the scars and wounds to show for it. And so manta rays spend much of their time, truly a lot of their time, up to 8 hours every day in some places, at the spa, getting themselves cleaned up. These cleaning stations, or spas if you prefer, as I do, are staffed by little fish. The little fish nip and bite at the mantas, removing parasites and dead tissue, cleaning up wounds. When they are not at the spa being tended to by little fish, the manta rays may be considering themselves. Really, self-awareness in a fish? Not just a fish, but a primitive one that doesn't even have any bones? This is surprising. What are the odds, and how would we know? One test of self-awareness that has been much used is the mirror self-recognition test. Chimps who have become familiar with mirrors, who then develop a mark that cannot be detected without the mirror, a red stain on one ear or above the brow ridge, will, when once again provided with a mirror, study themselves and their marks very carefully. Thus, we conclude that they know that they are looking at themselves in the mirror and not someone else. All of the great apes respond to mirrors this way. So do Asian elephants, bottlenose dolphins, and, over in the bird world, magpies too. One might wonder why we imagine that other life forms will reveal their intelligence in the same way that we do, that recognizing yourself in a mirror is a good test of self-awareness. It is true that much intelligence will be missed with a mirror self-recognition test, but any organism who pauses in front of a mirror, who responds to it in a way suggesting recognition, that is a sign that there is something familiar and deep going on inside of that animal's being. When manta rays are provided mirrors, they spend considerable time in front of them. much more than they spend elsewhere in their tanks. They do not change color rapidly or intensely as manta rays generally do when they encounter another member of their own species. What they do while hanging out in front of those mirrors is circle and swim, fast and slow, changing speed often, and open and close their cephalic fins, all at much higher rates than they do when they are not in front of the mirrors. It seems, to the researchers studying these manta rays, that the rays are engaged in contingency checking. If I do this, will the guy in front of me do the same thing? How about this? Ah, yes, he does the same thing at exactly the same time, just in reverse. Contingency checking. One of the greatest comedy scenes of all time relies on contingency checking. In Duck Soup, the 1933 Marx Brothers film, Harpo's character is dressed identically to Groucho's character, trying to evade him, when they come face to face in an empty space where a mirror existed just moments earlier. Groucho tests his reflection, or is it, with an ever more elaborate and silly set of actions, walking, nodding, shaking his butt, nodding, hopping, spinning, all of which his reflection mimics perfectly, or at least well enough for a while. This, from a very different evolutionary lineage, is what the manta rays appear to be doing in front of mirrors. Manta rays stay clean and healthy by spending time at the spa in the company of other manta rays, and they seem to recognize themselves in the mirror. Do these truths about manta rays make them less beautiful to you? Have I stolen wonder from you by telling you some of what we know, or rather have I provided you even more basis on which to find more wonder, seek more beauty in the world? I hope that the latter is true. We have been in the company of manta rays before, in Galapagos, but we weren't that close, and neither of us knew any of this about them.
Yeah.
They were just another remarkable sea creature in the amazing living zoo that is the Galapagos. So I did this research before we had spent any real time with manta rays, and I wrote that before we'd spent any real time with manta rays. I could not get enough. I could not get enough of them.
Yeah.
I wanted to just be, I don't tend to dive much, and I was very happy to, go down. Like we were snorkeling, but I didn't tend to go down to them much. Watching them from the surface, and we saw 3 of them at a time some days, was so extraordinary. I felt that I knew that I was in the presence of something deep. I hope that I would have felt that way had I not just did this deep dive into them.
Yeah, there was something particularly marvelous about, through the help of our local friends, the ability to find one of these spa places where the animal is actually engaged in, this daily ritual,
Yeah.
which makes it predictable in space to find, that you're able to actually watch it interact with the cleaner fish. And the animals are clearly aware of you as well. And I did dive down several times, and, I don't know whether the connection one feels, but you look into the eyes of this animal, it's clearly aware of you,
Yeah.
clearly not frightened.
Yeah.
And anyway, it was a special experience, especially great because we were able to kayak out to it. There's something very nice about not motoring out to some nature spot, but being able to actually just pull your way across the water and go see them. But yeah, I don't know. I was struck by them when we saw them in Galapagos, but I assumed, because we're talking about a ray, a cartilaginous fish, that there's not much going on upstairs. But
Right.
I will say that the exceptions to these rules are some of the most interesting creatures.
Yeah. Cephalopods.
Yeah, but
Octopus.
not even all cephalopods.
Yeah.
Octopus particularly appear to have this high quality intelligence and probable consciousness, even though they violate what I would say is the most basic rule of the evolution of those things, which is sociality.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And, here you have these somewhat social rays and passing the
That
mirror
are eating
test.
plankton.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
And so usually, often, I'm going to offend the vegetarians, but often between species, diet is a gross level indicator of intelligence, because it doesn't take as much to find something that doesn't hide from you when you're trying to find it. So herbivores tend not to be as smart at the species level as carnivores tend to be. And so here we've got something that all it has to do is open its mouth and maybe like help push stuff into it with its cephalic fins. It's not having to work hard to eat it, to feed itself. And yet incredibly brainy.
Yeah, I've wondered about octopuses, which I know is a proper way to refer to them, about why they have developed something akin to consciousness, and wondered if it actually has to do with understanding, that they're masters of camouflage.
Yeah.
And understanding what another creature will see well enough to hide yourself in that context seems to me a pretty complicated problem, and something that might drive rapid evolution of something like that.